Welcome to our web exclusive. I'm Mike Montecalvo, along with Eyewitness News Analyst Lt General Reginald Centracchio. They're meeting right now, General, talking about increasing security at airports and train stations and hubs around the country. We'll get to that in just a second. Boston Marathon is less than 2 weeks away. You're seeing an increase with security there.
You know, there's been a lot of planning going into it right now. In fact, it started last year, right after the marathon. But what I'm seeing now is they're coming up with definitive plans to be able to increase the amount of police officers, and much that we don't see is being put into a place right now. So it takes several weeks to put that all in place, and then the actual day, everything had better be in place.
You know, I mentioned they're increasing security at transportation hubs because what happened in Brussels, is that the same really tactic that they're using for the marathon too, what happened overseas?
Yeah, I think so. You know, once again, what happened overseas, I'm not sure what they have at Brussels airport, but most likely it's something similar to what we have here. A lot of what you don't see is in place. What we do see is more of a significant presence on patrols going through an airport and other transportation hubs, and so would be the case with the Boston Marathon.
You know, we've heard so many times, Colonel Stephen O'Donnell, the State Police, says you need to really be paying attention if you see something suspicious and see something that's routine all the time. They're mentioning that in Boston today.
Yeah. I think the key to it is the weak link in any plan is whether in fact the people, the participants, not so much the racers, but the participants who are there, need to report anything that's out of the ordinary to the authorities. And that would, to some extent, mean a tremendous difference as to whether something happens or not.
Okay, so the security plan that's putting into place, is that going to get tweaked? Because we're talking about, what, almost 2 weeks away. Will that get tweaked between now and then?
Absolutely. You know, more definitive information might come up, more intelligence, more input by the agencies participating. They may have a general plan, but as we get closer, it kind of narrows to some specifics versus the generality of it.
Who runs all this?
Oh, the Boston Police, certainly the committee that runs the marathon to begin with, state police and other local authorities, and certainly they have support from the adjacent states in the event that they need mutual support.
All right, switching gears, General, as I mentioned at the top, you're looking at increased security at airports, really all transportation hubs, bus stations and train stations. They're testifying today. You know, after 9/11, security was beefed up, so what more do they want to do?
I think what you're looking at is perhaps an increase in the amount of physical presence that you might see at an airport, more patrols, and more of the consequences of making sure that when people leave their vehicles to come into the airport before they even get to the counters, there's more scrutiny. For instance, as an example, you can leave your bags outside the door at TF Green, and you don't see those bags until you get to your destination. I think you'll probably see more scrutiny being paid to those bags before they even go into the building to be screened. So I think that's probably one of the things that I would suggest they would do.
Well, one of the proposals, General, is to double the armed TSA teams that patrol all of the transportation hubs. Is that kind of a quick fix? How do you pay for that?
Well, you know, that's a good point. I think they can talk about it, they can certainly plan for it, and they can train people, but training is the key to it. You can put somebody in uniform and you can put them out there with a TSA tag and a weapon. That doesn't make them necessarily effective. There's a lot of training that goes into it, and especially today with the technology. In fact, you did a story yesterday on a new device that's being planned that looks like an iPod or some other device, and it's a gun. Those kinds of things need absolutely specialized training to be able to detect it. And as we get more into the future, you'll see more and more of a challenge to be able to say that's a gun, that's a weapon, that's a contraband, and those kinds of things.
And that's obviously for domestic terrorism, and obviously talking about ISIS too and what happened in Brussels. There is movement in Mosul. ISIS had control of that in Iraq, but the Iraqi forces are now starting to take over again,
That's correct. They're on the verge of retaking that city, and I think once we do get to that point, that'll send a big message that the Iraqi forces are in fact effective. There's just a bit of a side note, making it somewhat local. During my tenure, I visited the 103rd Field Artillery, which had Mosul as its headquarters. And they had a pretty good relationship with the people of Mosul. All they want is stability. And I think if we can restore that, that would go an awful long way.
All right, General, as always, thank you for your thoughts, and thank you very much for watching.